As some of you might know, I am thinking about moving to America. But I've heard a lot of people are moving around. So a lot of people are leaving, apparently, California for Texas. Apparently they're leaving California for Arizona. They're leaving New York for Arizona, New York for Texas. Like, people are moving around. But if I wanted to move to America, ideally I'd want to move somewhere where, I wouldn't have to move. Like, I'd be happy there. The economy there would be good. There'd be enough people there to make it fun and make new friends. There'd be lots of things to do. So where are the places, for, like, if a young person was to move to the States, somewhere where ideally taxes are low, the cost of living is reasonable, property prices aren't insane, it's safe, and the weather isn't terrible. I mean, I don't need it to be hot year round. Coming from a place like London where we get a lot of rain, I'd be happy with, a temperate climate. As long as the summers are good, I don't mind winters. Where do I go?
Imagine living your entire life within a 50-mile radius because leaving really isn't a plan. It's a fantasy with a U-Haul and gas prices attached. In these states, home can feel less like a choice and more like a family heirloom you inherited without reading the fine print. America loves to sell itself as a country where people pack up, chase opportunity, and reinvent themselves in new zip codes. But the numbers tell a different story. Domestic migration dropped to a 20-year low in 24 and 25, according to Pew Research's analysis of census population trends. Even while the economy stayed volatile and housing costs kept rearranging people's lives. The census and Harvard research on young adults found that nearly 6 in 10 live within 10 miles of where they grew up.
Wow, so most Americans basically don't move far away from where they grew up. Interesting, but I thought a lot of Americans, they moved away for college and maybe they stayed in that state because they got a job there.
8 in 10 live within 100 miles of where they grew up. Even the possibility of higher wages somewhere else often doesn't get people to move. That's demographic inertia. For this list, we're using what I call the stickiness metrics, the percentage of current residents who were born in the same state. Let's take a look. Number 10, Indiana. Indiana calls itself the crossroads of America, which is funny because huge chunks of its people apparently reached the crossroads and said, nah, I'm going to stay here. This is a state where people may move from Fort Wayne to Indianapolis or from a small town to the suburbs, but many never really leave Indiana's orbit. The glue here is a mix of family networks, affordable housing compared to the coasts, manufacturing routes, and a culture that doesn't always reward wandering off. They don't really encourage it like you might get in other states. For a lot of Hoosiers, moving out of state feels less like an opportunity and more like you're breaking the formation. In this state, the trap isn't always poverty. Sometimes it's practicality. If your parents are nearby, your cousins are nearby, your job is good enough, and your mortgage isn't trying to eat your spleen, leaving starts to look less like a thing to do and more like a luxury product you're not really into. Indiana's also another one of those states where kids out of high school at a higher percentage go to in-state schools. There's only one other state that beats them, and that's Wisconsin. Their stickiness metric, 66.4% of Indiana's residents were born in Indiana.
Fair enough, to be fair. All the reasons he gave, I guess they would be enough to keep you. Like, it would probably take a really, really good offer, like in terms of pay for you to leave Indiana. Like maybe 50% more, would that be enough?
Number 9, Minnesota. Minnesota has this strange magnet type of thing going on with their youths, or as Joe Pesci called them, Utes. What movie is that from? Let me know in the comments section. Anyway, Minnesota has decent schools, major employers, a strong state identity, and enough lakes to make you feel like you're personally required to own a kayak or a canoe. People stay because Minnesota actually works better than a lot of states on this list. And that's what makes it sticky. The Twin Cities give people a big metro option without forcing them to leave the state, while smaller towns keep families rooted for generations. You can move away from your hometown and still end up just 2 hours away for Thanksgiving. Now here's the really weird thing about Minnesota. It's a decent state. A lot of other states on this list, and just in the country in general, people don't leave because it's expensive. When you're barely getting by, working 9 to 5, got 2 side hustles, and you can barely pay your bills, You don't have the money to rent a U-Haul, get a new apartment. You're too busy just trying to maintain what you got now.
Yeah, you're just trying to stay alive at that point, aren't you?
I've been broke before, and when your normal thing is you've got $20 left in your checking account 2 days before you get paid, getting $3,000 or $4,000 to move to another state isn't an option. That being said, their stickiness metrics, 66.4% of their residents are born in Minnesota. Number 8.
And I think Minnesota gets a lot of oil money, don't they? I think there's a lot of oil exploration in Minnesota. So probably a good employer if you're in the oil and gas industry, if that's the case.
West Virginia. West Virginia is exactly the opposite of what I was just saying about Minnesota. They're broke. West Virginia is where demographic inertia becomes almost physical. Mountains don't just shape landscape, they shape the decision making. Communities are tight, families are deeply rooted, and leaving can feel like you're abandoning the people who survived the same hard times you did. Almost like you're leaving an army buddy behind on the battlefield. The Census and Harvard Migration Study specifically found that Appalachian communities had above average stay rates, even across income levels. Now that matters because West Virginia isn't just people like to be here. It's geography, economy, kinship, and limited upward mobility all working together like a rusty machine that still somehow starts every single morning. There's a lot of reasons people stay here, and for this, it's going to be the poverty and it's going to be the family. There are very tight-knit communities here, and I'm not just talking up in the hollers. The cities, Morgantown, Charleston, Huntington, they've had families in these towns for hundreds of years. Type of place where you go play football against them, it's like half the team has the same last name. Yeah, we've all seen those before. For me, it was Carson High back in the 80s when we played football against them. It's like there's a big Samoan community there. It's like every single one of the offensive linemen had the same last name. West Virginia's stickiness metrics is 66.5% of their residents were born in West Virginia. Numbers.
I don't know though, like even if all your family, I mean a good amount of them live in that area, I don't know if my finances were really, really bad and I'd somehow managed to like get a job in a different state and it would change my life, I feel like I'd make the move. Like, I don't know whether me being from West Virginia and, you know, grown up there, my family's there, if I'm like dirt poor, I don't know if that's enough to keep me there. Would it be enough to keep you there?
7, Iowa. Why would you leave Iowa? You only leave Iowa if you're allergic to corn and a good time. Iowa's retention is powered by quiet pressure. Farms, family land, small town social networks, local schools, a culture built around staying close all make leaving this place oddly dramatic. You move to another state and settling Aunt Linda acts like you joined the circus. Iowa is one of those states where the economy may not be flashy, but it can be stable enough to keep people from gambling on someplace else, is what it breaks down to. And when your whole life is built around land, family, church, schools, and a town where everyone knows what truck you drive, mobility gets a little complicated for people. Iowa doesn't trap people with disasters or poverty. It traps them with predictability. And honestly, that can be comforting to a lot of people. To others, it's a slow motion cage with cornfields. Iowa's stickiness metric, 68.5% of their population was born in Iowa. Number 6.
I reckon there's probably a lot of farmers too in Iowa. If your dad's a farmer, you're going to run the farm. You know, that's what you're going to do. So that's probably another major reason why, you know, people don't leave. Maybe a lot of family businesses.
6, Wisconsin. A little surprise. I thought they'd be further down on this list. Wisconsin has serious state loyalty. Some of it is pride, some of it is beer, some of it is cheese, and some of it is people confusing frostbite with emotional resilience. Wisconsin is sort of known for being a state where people don't often leave. They just kind of stay there. It's a decent state. If you were raised there, you're used to the cold, so that really doesn't bother you. They like to have a good time, they like to work hard, and there's beer everywhere. What more could you want, honestly? I mean, if you've got Scandinavian bloodlines, then that's perfectly fine. If you're from Morocco, you might not be too into it. But underneath the jokes, Wisconsin has a real stickiness. Milwaukee, Madison, Green Bay, and the Fox Valley give residents enough internal options that they could change jobs, towns, or lifestyles without leaving the state. That makes Wisconsin less of a launch pad and more of a self-contained ecosystem. Like I'd said earlier, it leads the country in states where kids go to school in the state and then they don't leave after college. Yeah, I could definitely live in Wisconsin. I could see why people wouldn't leave there, though. I mean, other than Milwaukee, the state really doesn't have much crime. It's a lot more affordable than, let's say, some of the coastal states. Just you got to deal with that winter. That's about the only real issue most people have with Wisconsin. Their stickiness metric is 69.4% of their residents were born in Wisconsin.
This one sounds good, Wisconsin. It sounds safe. Yeah, the winters might be brutal, but I'm used to that. Great economy, he said. Lots to do. Many options career-wise. I mean, Wisconsin, I've not really thought about it. Like, of the states I've thought about, like, moving to, they've been the usual suspects, really. Like Texas, New York, California. Like, those are the ones I've really thought about. But I think I need to think outside the box. There's a lot more to America than Texas, California, and New York.
For 5, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is one of the stickiest states because it has old roots and a lot of internal variety. You could be from Philly, Pittsburgh, coal country, Amish country, the Poconos, Erie, or some town where the high school football field is treated like a Vatican property. Yeah, they're another state that gets serious about their football. Pennsylvania has enough big metros to keep people from fleeing, but enough old industrial towns to keep people locked into family networks and inherited routines. This is a place where it's got a serious amount of grandpa worked at that mill, dad worked at that plant, and the grandson now is trying to decide whether moving to North Carolina counts as betrayal. It's that type of thing. That's the Pennsylvania trap. It's not one culture, it's a pile of many cultures with basements, row houses, old union memories, and family obligations that run deeper than potholes. Their stickiness metric is 69.6% of their residents were born in Pennsylvania. The stickiness metrics, 69.6% of the residents were born in Pennsylvania.
That's super high. We're getting really high now. So 7 out of 10 people, you know, were born there. Their dad was born there. Their kids will be born there. And their kids' kids will be born there. Like, they're never leaving.
Number 4, Mississippi. Now, this is the opposite side of the coin for most of these places. People don't leave Mississippi because they can't afford to leave Mississippi. And it's not just gathering the money to move out. Let's say you got a kid and your mom does all the babysitting while you're at work. Family support plays a big part of why people stay in Mississippi. And, of course, the poverty. Mississippi sits right on the 70% line, and that number says a lot. This is a state with deep family roots, strong local identity, and generations of people tied to the same counties, churches, schools, and land. But their retention also raises a pretty uncomfortable question. How much of this is love and how much is limited mobility? When wages are low, household wealth is thin, and your safety net is family, leaving can be riskier than staying. A better job in another state doesn't help much when you can't afford to get there. The deposit, the childcare, it's just a big gamble. So why not just stay in Mississippi and keep doing the same thing? Mississippi's stickiness is tradition with a padlock. For some, home is sacred. For others, it's the only place you can't get evicted from because your families own the property since before World War II. The stickiness metric is 70% of Mississippi's residents were born there.
It's kind of sad, though, to think that there's people who would love to move to a different state to better their lives, but they just can't afford it. Because how much does it cost, like, to move state? So, if you want to put down a deposit, you probably need a month in advance, right? And the security deposit. But if you get somewhere really cheap, let's say it's like, I don't know, $1,000 a month, $2,000. Yeah, you'd need at least a few $1,000s, wouldn't you? Then the moving costs. Yeah, it's not a cheap thing to do, is it?
3, Ohio. Ohio is one of the most interesting states on this list, and not just because it sucks. It's because it gives residents multiple versions of leaving without crossing a border. You can move from Cleveland to Columbus, from Cincinnati to Dayton, from Toledo to Akron, and never go back to Toledo, and you're still technically in the same old Ohio casserole. Ohio is big enough, urban enough, and varied enough that people can reinvent themselves without escaping the state. And in most cases, that's how people leave. They escape. It has universities, hospitals, manufacturing, logistics, government, and enough mid-sized cities to keep the orbit intact. I'm still obsessed with Cincinnati chili, though. I've made it like 10 times since I did that video 4 months ago. I think my family's sick of it. Now, there's a darker side to living in Ohio. Many of the towns were built around industries that shrank or disappeared, and families that stayed there because the factory, because the plant, because they couldn't make any money. They didn't want to leave, but their income dried up. At the end of the day, Ohio's still sticky because it's like America's middle drawer. Everything you need is in there, but half of it is tangled. Their stickiness metrics comes out to 74.3% of their residents were born in Ohio.
I will say, from this angle, it is a beautiful looking city. I love the way this river cuts through all of this, metropolitan buildings and the high rises, with all this grass. It looks very nice.
Number 2, Michigan. Michigan has one of the strongest home state identities in the country. People don't just say they're from Michigan, they point at their hand like they're a cartographer at a family barbecue. The state has Detroit, which is getting better, Grand Rapids, which is also doing better, Lansing's not bad, Ann Arbor's great, Flint, we'll forget about Flint for a minute.
Didn't they have a water problem a few years ago? Do you remember? Like, there was that issue where there was no clean water coming out of the taps. It was all like brown and stuff. Has that all been sorted now? Do they have clean drinking water from the tap, from the faucet, I think Americans call it?
Mizzou, the lakes, the Upper Peninsula, and enough internal identity to make leaving feel optional. Like Ohio, Michigan allows people to move around without fully breaking away from the state. But Michigan's retention is also tied to its industrial legacy, just like Ohio. Auto jobs, union history, family homes, and communities built around factories that created deep roots. When those industries stumbled, many of the people didn't leave. They stayed in a place where the old economy faded, but the family map remained. I've never lived in Michigan, but I used to play hockey with a guy, and one time he mentioned that he couldn't wait to get back to Michigan. I said, why? You're living in Southern California. He's all, Michigan gets in your blood, and you can't get away from it too long. That always stuck with me. I thought that was interesting. Never thought of it as a place, especially back when I was in my 20s, that, people would want to stay in. But they do. Michigan is not just loyal. Michigan has a grip. The stickiness metric is 75.1% of their population was born in Michigan. All right.
I think they've also got a very good, their college football team's really good, isn't it?
Before we get to number 1, if you're thinking about moving to another city in your state or in any state, there's a link for Home and Money in the description area below. They can get you in touch with a real estate agent anywhere in the country. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Louisiana. Yep. The state that has New Orleans. It made the list because these people stay there. Now, it's not just the normal folks that live in the city and stuff. Their Cajun community and the, kind of the country people there, they stay. Oddly enough, there was this documentary years ago when they went and they looked at different places. It was called Happy. What makes happy people? What makes them happy? And it went all around the country, and it kind of listed the areas where they had the happiest people. It was Louisiana, and especially around the Cajun community. And what it broke down to is people are happiest when they're near their family. But Louisiana's culture is intensely local. Parishes matter, family names matter, food, music, religion, festivals, language, and neighborhood identity all create a powerful sense that leaving Louisiana means leaving part of yourself behind. That kind of cultural glue is hard to measure. And
that's a fair point, because if you are like a real Louisiana, New Orleans person, the whole Cajun thing, Mardi Gras, you can't really do that elsewhere in the country, can you? It's so tied to that location.
The census numbers show the results. More than 3/4 of the current residents were born in Louisiana. But that glue can become a trap. Louisiana has long struggled with poverty, disasters, out-migration pressure, and uneven opportunity. For people with resources, leaving can be a strategic choice. For people without resources, staying can be a default setting. And I think that's the biggest thing for most of them. It's the default setting. Just got to stay there because you can't get out. Louisiana proves the whole point of this list. High retention can look like pride from a distance, but up close, it can be family, culture, limited money, weak mobility, and a state identity so strong it turns the exit sign into a decoration. Their stickiness metrics, 77% of Louisiana was born there.
Great video. It's a real interesting one. I would say of all the states he mentioned, Michigan, was it Michigan or Wisconsin sounded the most enticing to me. I don't really know anything about Wisconsin though. Let me have a look. So average salary in Wisconsin. I know this isn't going to be very accurate, but let's just see what Google says. The average salary in Wisconsin is $61,600 per year. Let me see, average. So how does Wisconsin compare to the other US states in terms of cost of living versus income? So that should give us a very good sort of idea. So Wisconsin strikes a favorable balance between earnings and expenses. It ranks 26th nationally in median household income. So it's around about in the middle, sitting just below the US median. However, because its costs of living is approximately 4 to 6 below the national average, residents frequently experience higher purchasing power than in coastal states. Interesting. So basically, you're not going to earn crazy amounts relative to the rest of the country, but you don't need to because the cost of living is lower. So that could be something to think about, because, you know, I don't think there's much point if you earn a load of money, but you're spending so much on taxes, on accommodation, food, transport, all of that stuff. I think finding a balance is quite important to me. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. And if you did, check out this video right here and hit the join button below. See you there.